I'm remembering today, and I just have a request for everybody joining. If you can please mute your microphones and keep your cameras off.
No pretty faces.
I know. Let me see, anything else here? I am ready to jump in. And Tom, I know I'm going to introduce you again. I'm going to read a quick bio.
Okay, now our images are blocked where they are. Is it not blocked for you?
Uh-uh. Can you not
Huh.
see?
I can see half of you and half of me.
Oh, that is so funny.
But if it's okay for you and
All right,
everybody else, it doesn't matter to me.
all right, hang on here. Let me see what standard. No, I don't want that. Y'all bear with me. I am not a Zoom expert when it's multiple people. I think because I have the whiteboard up. If
Could
any,
be.
uh, let me just see.
Maybe you can exit out and then bring it back. I don't know.
Let's see. Can y'all, anybody online here, can y'all see both of us? If you would let me know in a chat.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay.
I I don't need to look at myself.
So they can see a map. This is so interesting. All right, hang on, y'all. We've got images to share today, so that's why I have this up, but I'm going to close that out.
There. Hello.
Okay. So when it's time for images, your screen will shift a little bit. So welcome, Tom. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for being available to talk about all of your wonderful work. For those of you that don't know Tom, many of you do. Tom is an award-winning author, speaker, entertainment industry CEO. He is a telepath and has asked over 30,000 questions in a meditative state. He brings a keen knowledge of how requesting benevolent outcomes can be used both in business affairs and one's personal life. He says that requesting benevolent outcomes for over 25 years has resulted in leading a gentler, less stressful, and less fearful life the gentle way. Hang on, I'm letting more people in here.
Okay, and I'm going to close the door. I forgot to do that.
Okay, great. So Tom Moore was also voted Best Self-Help Author for 3 years by Health Magazine. His books include his latest, The Gentle Way with Pets, Angelic Help for Your Animal Companions, plus the three Gentle Way series, and along with First Contact, Conversations with an ET, and Atlantis and Lemuria, The Lost Continents Revealed. He is a native of Dallas, Texas, a graduate of Texan Christian University, served in the U.S. Army as first lieutenant. He is married and has two children. You can visit his website at
And the grandchild.
Oh, and a grandchild. That's awesome. So you can visit his website at thegentlewaybook.com. And so you want to add that book in there, thegentlewaybook.com.
Yep. Singular.
So Tom, today we're going to talk about, well, and you have a new book coming out, Conversations with Gaia. That's well, two books with that, two volumes.
2 volumes. Yeah. Lots of information.
Great. This is exciting. You know, just reading even the Atlantis and Lemuria book, that alone is packed with so much information, and there's just so much I did not know about I mean, I guess I've just known the lore of those, places. So
Which are mostly talked about as being mythical.
absolutely. And reading the book, I was like, gosh, my idea of Atlantis and Lemuria is just uh, com mythical, completely mythical. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And we'll jump into that today, how they really were like cities and that we might see today.
continents.
Continents, right. So let's talk about what the gentle way first. We
Okay,
jump into that. So for those of you,
little
this
review for everybody.
yeah, and this is how I found you, thegentleway.com or thegentlewaybook.com. My sister had introduced me to your work. And I've told this story before. I tell this all the time, but I was already eh, doing my own thing to manifest every day to, connect with the divine. And my sister called and she said, "Oh, I've got this great book. You have to read it. You have to get it." And I was like, "No, I think I'm good with what I'm doing right now. I don't want to add another tool to my toolbox at the moment." And just a few months later, I was with her in Virginia and we were out to dinner with a group of people. And I leaned over to her and I said, "Are you getting bit by mosquitoes? Like, this is a lovely evening except for the mosquitoes." And she said, "Hey, do this most benevolent outcome really quick." And it was a most benevolent request to be, enjoy the rest of the evening free from mosquitoes. And I was shocked. Within seconds, there were no more mosquitoes. And that lasted the entire evening, even when we got home and sat out on the deck. So I was hooked from then on.
Especially we're all in mosquito country.
Right. Which, and I'll have you talk a little bit about the gentle way, how that came to you and how you brought that to the world.
Sure. I read a article in the Sedona Journal of Emergence by Robert Shapiro, who channeled a being by the name of Zosh, who actually is a sort of a creator intern for our creator. Our creator, before he created our universe, went around and studied all sorts of other uh, creations. There are trillions of them. So it was not like there's no time. So it took as long as it took. And before he decided to create um, the universe that we live in. And so Zosh told told him at that told Robert Shapiro that you can request benevolent outcomes in your life, and that rang a bell with me, big one for some reason. And I said, I'm going to play around with that. And so I started requesting what I now call MBOs, most benevolent outcomes. I had to put a most in there because if you say BO, it sounds kind of funny. So it's most benevolent outcomes. And you just say, I request a most benevolent outcome for whatever it is. Thank you. And these MBOs are specifically for you if you want to say ask a benevolent request for other people, pets, countries, you name it. Uh, that's in the form of a benevolent prayer. And you say, I ask any and all beings to dot, dot, dot. Thank you. So it's real easy to say. You don't have to say a deity's name. If you wish to, you can. But I set this up so that anyone of any religious belief could say these. And like as I say, if you want to add a deity in there, that's fine. But you don't have to. When you say this out loud, it goes directly to the universe and is heard and normally is acted on either by your own guardian angel for MBOs, or if it's a prayer for other people, there's a million souls that handle all the prayer requests of every single person on earth.
I like to think of that, just the whole space we're in being occupied by those benevolent beings.
And
So
they
with
are.
that,
Yeah.
so with thinking of that and thinking of all of them there to answer our requests, is that part of the reason why We can ask unlimited requests throughout the day. I know some people feel like they're going to take advantage of the beings in spirit that help us.
There is no taking advantage. You can ask 100 questions, 100 requests a day, um, and they'll respond as long as it's within your soul contract. And if it's not within your soul contract, it will not happen. So, as an example, if you request a benevolent outcome uh, for John Jones to be your boyfriend and it doesn't happen, it's because someone better is on the way. And that's the way it works. The same with jobs. If you request a benevolent outcome and you don't get the job, it's because something better is on the way. So it's not on your soul contract. There's something better that's going to happen for you.
So, how can you determine when something is not? I mean, obviously, if it's not happening, it's not on your soul contract. Yet,
Mhm.
how do you determine, like, if a week goes by or 2 weeks go by and it's still not happening? Would you just assume that? Would you
You
ask?
just have to release.
Yeah. Oh,
When
okay.
you request an MBO, just release and let it go. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But um, uh, you'll see it. Sometimes it takes weeks or months down the way, and then you'll remember, oh, I asked for a benevolent outcome for this. I forgot. Yeah, and then it pops up. So
So, what about the desire to repeat an MBO? Will it
many
diminish?
times as you want, as my guardian angel Theo says, he says you're not penalized. You can you can say the same MBO every single day of the week if you want to, um, and you're not penalized. It's just that you have to understand this works perfectly with your soul contract. So just remember that some things are not for you. If you don't win the lottery, well, maybe that's not on your soul contract.
Okay.
And sudden wealth is a soul contract item. It can be a lottery, it can be um, a stock market killing, it can be an inheritance, but typical instant wealth is something that's a soul contract item for you to learn how to handle wealth.
Okay. That makes sense. A lot of people, some, I know when I do readings, I get asked for lottery numbers.
Oh, oh boy.
I know. So talk
You,
about,
and you could tell them, request a benevolent outcome to win something on the lottery. Now, if if you drop your sights down, well, let me win at least $10 or something.
right.
And then you win 100. Hey, that's great, but you haven't set your sights too high.
That's a good idea. So with MBOs, we can ask a wide range of them, and nothing is too small or too grand. Could you talk a little bit about that? I know asking for a mosquito-free evening felt so silly to me, you know?
That's pretty grand
Right.
in my book.
Right.
Having been eaten alive by mosquitoes at one time. I remember many years ago when I was in Boy Scouts, we went up to a camping site in Arkansas called Petit Jean Mountain, and it was raining, and so I left my feet outside the tent um, with the rain and everything. Woke up in the morning, my feet were covered in
Oh
in
my
the
God.
mosquito bites because it stopped raining. And the mosquitoes came out. I remember that. Those those were, and this is as a Boy Scout, so you can imagine
Oh my
the
gosh.
impression it left on me. So, so anyway, the ask you can ask the grand ones. It's uh, and and you know
So grand ones, like somebody even dealing with a health crisis, cancer or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Ask for, and we,
Yeah, you can say, I request the most benevolent come to find the perfect treatments for my illness or sickness or cancer, whatever it happens to be. And you'll be guided.
uh, and then small ones, even
Oh, and I'll mention one. I just got in a story that I put in this Saturday's blog, which you can find on my website at www.thegentlewaybook.com. Click on blogs. A lady told me that she requested a benevolent prayer. She called it an MBO, but it was benevolent prayer for her son who had a shoulder injury. And when he went to this place, he was going to get, I think, some medicine or something, like some shop. And and the person asked him what was wrong and wound up treating him with acupuncture and fixed his problem with his shoulder.
oh wow, wow,
And, and that was from a request she made for her son.
wow. So we can use MBOs in dangerous situations, sudden, like when we need sudden help or we're feeling fearful.
Dangerous. And I know, I don't think told you the story last time, but there was, pardon me if I did. Um, I, there was a woman that wrote me and said her daughter was walking down the street in California and a van with a couple of men started following her. And so she requested a benevolent outcome for her safety. Right then, a group of people came outside of a house right where she was walking, and the van sped away. And she said she knows, the daughter said she knew that her life might have been saved by those people coming outside. So you can use it in all sorts of dangerous situations.
So I know the instructions are to say them out loud, say them with enthusiasm,
Mhm.
say, end it with a thank you. And what if we're in a place where we're not comfortable saying it out loud?
Well, you can whisper it. Uh, Lesser value would be to write it, but better than nothing. But a lot of times you could just whisper it. Nobody will, you know, and it'll work. Um, they're waiting for you. Guardian angels are benevolent from the very start, so they want to assist you, and and they will. You just have to ask. Otherwise, you're left to your own devices and you'll be tossed and turned like a, a bar of soap in a washing machine or something, uh, back and forth. But when you start requesting benevolent outcomes, it eases things. Things become easier. Things don't become so turbulent. And and that's you'll if you do them enough to make it a habit, that's one of the things, when you start doing anything new, is making something a habit, and uh, and um, that's the hardest thing. If you do it starting on the mundane things every time you go to the store, asking for a parking space or a seat on a train or bus or subway or just the small things to build up your confidence. Hey, this really works. And I know I was in Paris one time, and a friend of mine and I had to go all the way across the city for a meeting, and we had to take uh, two subways, whatever they're called in Paris. And so each time I requested, and this was a busy time of the day, morning time, and I requested benevolent outcome for a seat on the subway each time that we changed, and got a seat every single time. And he was saying, "Oh, you were just lucky." You And I did the same back, except we only had to take two instead of three. So, it does work. Your friends won't believe you, but it does.
But eventually they watch it happen enough, they start to get really curious. And
Yeah,
so talk about one of my favorite things I would say about using MBOs, and I do use them from the minute I get up in the morning to going to bed. It is an all day affair for me. And so talk about the radiant effect, because I
right.
love that.
Yeah. Radiant effect has worked for a long time. Um, when you are driving and you have people in your car and you request a benevolent outcome for your drive, uh, they're in that their bubble of white light, if you wish to call it, or gold light, and uh, and there's a bubble of light around you so that the cars on either side and behind and in front of you are they're in that bubble. So it's something that uh, uh, works all the time in crowds and so on. If you request benevolent outcomes,
Well, I also like how they make you feel. Like you said, you just I feel like when I say an MBO or a benevolent prayer for someone, I just feel like my vibration rises. And the more you do it, it's like you just stay in a higher place of being.
yeah, and it does over a period of time. My guardian angel Theo tells me that you that by requesting these benevolent outcomes, not only for yourself, but benevolent prayers for other people, you're showing compassion. And when you show compassion and love, it raises your vibrational level. Okay. And and that's why I have this morning prayer that they can find on my website at www.thegentlewaybook.com and go to signs. And I have what's called, I call it the forgiveness prayer, but it says benevolent prayer on it. And I ask forgiveness for anyone I've ever harmed in any past, present, or future life, and for the families and friends of anyone that I've ever harmed in any past, present, or future life. Because I'm told all of our lives on earth are all going on at the same time. And our life here affects even your past lives and your future lives, not to mention your present life. So when you do that um, in your future lives, you're going to have easier lives because if you had wronged somebody, instead of it being a big challenge, it becomes a smaller challenge. So it becomes easier to get past.
That's really beautiful. And it might be switching gears here a little bit, but talk about um the different lives that we're having currently. Can you explain that a little? I know I was reading about uh, the 12 lives, the Earth. I
Hmm.
don't know if that's part of the Earth experiment or.
Yeah, it is. And when uh, when Creator, uh, I've been told all along by my guardian angel Theo and Gaia, they all kept saying Creator likes variety. Well, I assume that meant on Earth because we have such this enormous variety of beings having lives, an enormous flora, and on and on and on. And I thought that's what they meant, but it also meant that he likes variety in the universe. When he created this universe, um, I call it the small bang theory, okay, because he created several hundred galaxies and he created them and they were all tightly packed together. And so this will have to do with Gaia. We'll get back to that later, maybe. And but every single one of those hundreds of galaxies were all different from each other. And then eventually, when he was pleased with what he had done so far and started creating trillions of galaxies in this universe. Every single one of those trillions of galaxies are different from each other. So that to me is just amazing. And that's why I call him creator as compared to God, because I just don't, I think when we use the word God, it's like, to me, it's like a limiting word compared to creator who created this universe with trillions of galaxies, all different from each other.
That the width, well, gosh, I don't even know where to go from here. So much to talk about. I mean, even in the gentle way, I was reading in the Atlantis book that the gentle way, you were there in Atlantis and brought that forth at that time.
Yeah.
And,
So, but let's go back even a little further.
okay.
Um, and this is where you might need to show the uh, where they were located, the continents of Atlantis and Lemuria, and then the islands.
Okay. Let me get
Can
that
we?
here. Yep. Uh-huh.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to the page. Hang on here. So
You,
show Atlantis first.
uh, you can show all three of them. We'll just pop through since we're probably limited for time a little.
Great.
Okay, at the top, you see Atlantis. Now, Atlantis was in the shape of a parallelogram and growing.
Hang on.
Now you just have to up there. There we go. Okay, it was in the shape of a parallelogram sitting in between Europe, Africa, and North America. And the artists that did this, I kept trying. I was under a pressure from my publisher to get this done quick for these images. So the image of the northern border or uh, uh, coastline of Atlantis is slightly a little too high. It ran along the 40th parallel, if someone wants to look that up afterwards on the globe. So the 40th parallel. And it came within 30 miles of the coast of Africa, although at that time it was called the Land of Oz. And it had a tail that extended all the way down to the Bahamas. And so the Bahamas are remnants of the continent of Atlantis. Now, 30,000 years ago, there was a line of volcanoes sitting on top of the mid-Atlantic ridge, and they all exploded at the same time, sinking most of the continent, leaving some islands here and there that were left over, the Azores, Canaries, a couple of islands off of North America, and of course the Bahamas. And then if you look down at the bottom image, there was an island about the size of Cuba, but in a round shape, and that was called Poseidia. And below it, 375 miles to the south, if you were to draw a line out from Washington, D.C., straight out into the Atlantic, that's where Erin was located. And there were 5 little bitty islands in a half moon circle below that. And so that was what was left of Atlantis afterwards. And what's interesting um, in lore or old stories, there was Hercules, and Hercules was actually the first sailor to make it uh, out into the Atlantic because for hundreds of years there'd been mud and nobody could navigate. And Hercules actually navigated. I don't know where all he went, but they made up all sorts of stories about Hercules and his triumphs which weren't true, but it sounded great for for people at that time. And and so and then now Atlantis was about 10 10% the size of present day Australia, and the continent of Mu or Lemuria was about 12% larger. And so they, as you can see, it was actually connected at one time to Japan, but when Atlantis sank, 160 feet of water rose from the displacement of land and flooded every single uh, coastline on the world, uh, submerging every single town, village, and city all around the world. So everybody lost all knowledge about Atlantis except for a few surviving stories. And then when using that bottom image, when Poseidon and Aaron went to war 12,500 years ago, the um, the islands sank from using these big radar guns, these laser guns, and the oceans rose another 45 feet. And that was when Noah's Ark actually took place. It didn't take place 3,000 years ago or so, but 12,500. And so that's uh, Noah's Ark landed on the lower reaches of Mount Ararat, and not on the very top as people claimed since then. So then the last major uh, sinking came when, and this was, I found out I helped in the sinking. I helped sink the continent of Mu in a war. And for that, um, I had to spend 85 lives balancing that one. I was a religious leader that joined in with the leaders of my country, encouraging them to drop hydrogen type bombs on two other countries. And they proceeded to drop bombs on us, and it broke apart the whole continent. And the continent of Mu sank, raising the oceans 170 feet. So that was the last major rising. I will mention that the continent of Mu sat only 100 miles from Hawaii. And so for thousands of years, the Lemurians vacationed on Hawaii. That's why Hawaii has so much Lemurian energy. And even when they started warring with each other in the last 1,000 years, each of the countries, there were 5 or 7, had their own beach. So one beach, the people would be fully clothed. Another beach might be nude or topless or something like that. It all depended on what their beliefs were. So that's that's how Hawaii got so much of its Lemurian energy.
And probably why it adds to the lore of the continent, the story of it also.
Mm-hmm.
I always think Lemuria is like my idea of it is like this magical place, almost like where you might think fairies and elves come from.
Yeah. It was a very gentle place. I was told that I had about 180 lives on Atlantis, but only 65 on Lemuria. And I said, why the huge difference? And I was told because thousands of years, they were a very gentle people, very spiritual and just lovely people until their last 1,000 years. But the Atlanteans, they were out conquering the Mediterranean
Oh,
and so on. And of course, after the continent sank, they had a mining colony to the west of what is now Hot Springs, Arkansas, and to mine the crystals that they use to power all of their vehicles and planes and houses and apartments and so on.
Gosh, it's amazing they would even know about that resource in Arkansas.
Yeah, they had explored. Obviously, if you look, Atlantis was only 100 miles off the coast of North America. So, they were out and around, and uh, and probably some of the people uh, when when the continent was sinking might have wound up in North America. But I haven't explored that far enough. Um, it's enough to know that at one point I and 25,000 of my followers trekked across Europe to Egypt and resettled there prior um, to the war that uh, sank the islands. I was told by ETs that was going to happen, and that's why I moved to Egypt.
So your time that last was that your last lifetime in Atlantis?
No, from what I understand, in order to uh, keep in mind, we have uh, overlapping lives, you could call it, or
Right.
whatever. And it's my understanding one of the lives I had in uh, atoning for Lemuria was to go down with Atlantis or Poseidon. So
Wow.
that that will happen.
So I'm kind of curious. I have clients in California, and just looking at the present day predictions or work, information you're bringing forth from Gaia about, California or just the West Coast and the earthquakes. It almost sounds like Atlantis in a modern day, just looking at that West Coast. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just a different way. I mean, it happened with volcanoes on the big continent of Atlantis, but on the West Coast, it's going to be earthquakes, and they're going to be seven, eights, and nines, and this is all next year, and uh, the the coastline will shrink by about 5% from Tijuana all the way up through the Aleutians, and that will raise all the oceans 3 feet. And so places like New York will have flooding that they'll have to build barriers for, but it'll take a while. So they're going to have some very flooded subways and Battery Park. And I don't know where Battery Park is, but somebody mentioned Battery Park would be flooded. So.
Oh, wow. So is this something, and just a little bit more about California, starting next year, will this take place over several years' time?
No,
Oh,
precursor quakes will start in the first 3 months of 2026. They're already, if you
yeah.
start looking at earthquake activity on the West Coast, there was a 5.2 on last, not like Monday a week ago, I think it was, and with 300 and no, let's see, 357 earthquakes 3.0 and higher after that 5.2 in Southern California. There's just a slow buildup, and that's going to happen this year. But then the really big stuff, first 3 months will be the precursors. There'll be lots of quakes with 6 to 6.5s mixed in. And then somewhere around May, June, July, that's when the heavy hitters come. And it won't be just one. It'll be months of sevens, eights, and nines.
So can
Yep.
we, is it within, and I guess, I don't know if California has a particular contract or the West Coast yet. Is, you know how when people come together in prayer, they can circumvent, prophesied events, so to speak. Could MBOs or benevolent prayers assist with lessening what might happen there?
I'm not sure if it'll lessen. Gaia says that requesting MBOs and all, it will help you to be guided out of the area. That it, so that you won't be there when the big one happens for wherever you live in on the West Coast.
Okay.
But you've got to move way far to the east because that's it just will not be livable. Uh, Gaia is going to take down all the mountains surrounding Los Angeles. There will be no highways out of Los Angeles that will be drivable. People will have to walk, she says. So you can imagine what a mess that's going to be.
Yeah. Wow.
And there will be rescues set up from Las Vegas, and there'll be uh, probably helicopters and what have you that will fly in trying to take out as many people as they possibly can.
So even I want to talk a little bit, and I know I'm jumping around some. Lemuria is
Mhm,
believed to, or at least I've heard a story, and I don't, that a lot of Lemurians live beneath Mount Shasta, which is in California,
mhm.
that part of that mountain range. I don't know what will happen there if that mountain is destroyed.
I don't know if Mount Shasta would actually be destroyed. Also, keep in mind that the Lemurians live on a little higher frequency than we do. That's why we can't see them unless they want to lower their frequency and come into town and say hello to the locals, which they do. I don't know if you've read or heard about that, but if you see a big 7 foot tall man or woman walking around the Mount Shasta area, you might take a second look. I I know my wife and I went to a Lee Carroll Cryon event in uh, in Sedona. No, pardon me, in Mount Shasta, and we were on the second row, and sitting right in front of us was this very tall couple, and and so they went up and got married on stage. You can see this if you go to Lee Carroll's website, Cryon website, and search around, I don't know, 2006 or seven, somewhere up in there. And there's this, I mean, the man and woman both were very tall. And so I asked her, I said, why did you decide to get married here? And she said, well, this Lemurian came and sat on the end of my bed and told me we were supposed to get married at this event. So there you go.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about like Lemuria, Atlantis. What would be helpful for us to know as far as like can the knowledge of their stories influence us today to make better decisions, would you say?
Well, the fact that they one of the reasons why we've never rediscovered crystal energy, okay, is because everyone has um, a deep-seated concern that we would turn these crystals into weapons of war again.
Um,
But they were used originally, and the ETs gave it to them as free energy, and they had these posers set up all over the country that would beam out this energy that ran all their electrical items. And uh, so that's one of the things we will never, I'm told we'll never destroy ourselves again. Okay. That's never going to happen. But we uh, there was a free energy machine that some company or a a group of say run by a company, but uh, as a nonprofit that has invented another free energy machine. And for the last 3 years, I've been told that it was going to be released. And and I was told, oh, Tom, it was going to be released by the end of 2024. Here we are, 2025, hasn't. So I was asking recently, and I was told that there's been pushback by people in the organization saying, oh my God, it's going to ruin all the oil companies, it's going to ruin all, went on and on and on. And so there's been pushback, but I'm told it's an 85% probability now it's definitely going to be released from this year. So that's all I can tell you.
Right, somebody's asking, is the screen, do you want to keep the maps up? No.
I guess we can get rid of them.
Yeah. All right, I do want to show the cover though of your book Conversations with Gaia.
Right. And right below it, it's going to say volume 1 or volume 2, because we had to split it into 2 books because it was so huge. So that was something that was just decided 2 weeks ago or so. Now, I haven't gotten the new redone image. I think that's the way to say it.
And that you're expecting those books to come out this summer, is that right?
It sounds like maybe in the next month. Okay.
Oh, okay, great.
It's real close. But I asked my publisher today, and she said she's going to make a decision on it this week. So
this book is based on conversations over the years with Gaia, and you've also in working with the Atlantis and Lemuria material, Gaia was also involved in that. Is that right? Do I understand that?
Say that again.
You've connected with Gaia for a long time. So did that connection assist you in the information you brought forth with Atlantis and Lemuria?
Yes, I believe I asked quite a few questions of her, but we're not repeating that, in this book. But there'll be some of the information, but it's just a huge amount of information, space and science and just all sorts of things. So it's a compilation that really took months and months and months to put together.
Wow.
So, but I will put out a call while we're thinking about it. If anybody has any questions about fairies, I used not to believe in fairies, but the king and queen of the fairies are after me to do a book on fairies. It's just that I don't have a huge amount of questions to make up a full book yet. And so if you've got any questions about fairies, let me know. One of the things I found out, leprechauns, there are no female leprechauns. That the soul of the leprechauns only likes males. And so if a leprechaun dies, another male leprechaun is created.
Well, gosh, that I want to ask all kinds of questions around that.
So yeah, you can imagine. So
So with the in the work with the fairies and the elves, would that include oh my gosh, I guess all mythical being, would unicorns be in that realm also? Anything about unicorns or
I've been asked about unicorns, and they were very gentle creatures. One of the nice things is that you can go to my website, www.thegentlewaybook.com. Don't forget, you can sign up for the free newsletter on the front page, but then you can go to articles and news, and up at the top right-hand corner, there's a search box. So you can enter unicorns and see what all I've received so far about unicorns. But they will not be brought back until after humans leave Earth, I'm told. So they're a nice thing to think about, but they're unless some human finds their DNA like they did. But let's see, what was it? They found that the wolf,
the white that dire wolf, right?
dire wolf, yes.
Yeah.
Um, so so hopefully a human will not find a unicorn to do that for.
So, Tom, your newsletter is packed with information, and that's something you send out weekly,
Yeah,
and people can write in questions that they may have for Gaia, for Theo, for
yeah. Just just ask the question and I'll figure out where it goes.
okay, okay,
But before you do, go to that search box and see
if it's in
if
there.
I've answered it already. Because I've asked over 30,000 questions,
Yeah.
and I've asked a lot of questions. So, um, and I found that it's a Google search, but for some reason it doesn't always find everything. And I don't know why that doesn't work any better. You'd think Google could
Right.
could do a better job, but at least start with that, and you might find 3 or 4 listings, but there might be actually 7 or something.
Okay. And there are, what did you say, over 900 newsletters you've written?
Yeah, 900. Yeah, over. So yeah, I'm going for 1,000
Good.
before I check out and head to my next life. My next life on Earth is going to be a female space pilot of one of 15 Earth starships in the 3400 era. We will not, humans will not learn how to portal hop, which is how you jump from one part of the universe, maybe taking 2 or 3 stops uh, to another, but we will not learn how to do that until 3250.
Oh, wow.
And Antura, my ET buddy, described it. He said, it's like a Southwest Airlines plane, Tom, taking over off from, say, Orlando and making 2 or 3 stops across the country to California. And I expressed surprise, at that analogy. And he said, oh, Tom, we know everything about you.
So
So,
has Antura been with you all of your Earth experiences?
no, now it depends on what you mean by Earth experiments.
Well, your lifetimes, I guess. I don't know how to refer it. So,
Um, Antura is one of my soul cluster brothers. And and so he's a fragment of my soul as I am a fragment of my soul. So there's actually 8 of us. I found out it was too late. I was really disappointed. And probably they did that on purpose. But when I was going to Cannes for these TV and film markets, uh, I was told that one of my soul cluster sisters, in this case, uh, is a uh, is a psychic living in Provence, and I've been to the town that she lives in 2 or 3 times for dinner. Beautiful
Oh,
dinners. Oh my goodness. And had I known about that, I would have been looking for the psychic lady in Provence, but uh, it didn't happen. So anyway, so I know of at least 3 of us or more from the same soul.
oh, wow.
And uh, so Antura contacted me in 2008, and basically I've learned that he's here to assist me in introducing people to extraterrestrials.
Oh, wow. So the soul cluster, I mean, we all have soul clusters. Is it varied in how big or small those clusters are
Yes,
for each individual? Okay.
yes. They can be anywhere from typically on average 6 to 12 in a cluster. Now you take Jesus, and Jesus, from my understanding, was the only one of his uh, from his soul. That's the only one that I know had that few. They specifically mentioned that. So everybody else has 6 to 12. In my case, it's 8, and we all are having hundreds of lives each on Earth, but with a different soul interest. So, as an example, oh, and I forgot, reveals the mysteries. The first person I ever spoke to telepathically in the 1600s. He's part of my soul cluster, and he's my main guide
Oh,
now. But so there's 4 of us, and though or 5, whatever. And so he's um, uh, uh, Antura has a sole interest in the exploration and setting up towns and villages from the very start, where my sole interest is I understand religion, spirituality, and advising world leaders. So that's my sole interest. So everybody in our group has a different sole interest.
mhm. So for if someone wanted to understand their particular soul cluster, how would they go about doing that?
Meditate and
Meditate.
ask your guardian angel.
Yeah.
You know, just say,
See what.
just put yourself into a light trance and uh, altered state and say, I'd like to speak to my guardian angel. And you'll hear in your head
Yeah.
coming through your pineal gland. I mean, it won't be a voice. It'll be what are called thought packets.
Mhm.
That's what they're called, thought packets. And these thought packets will uh, are they go through your antenna, and then they're assembled in your brain according to your knowledge and according to your religious beliefs. Um, someone that had a deep uh, religious belief of any sort, it would be couched in terms that they could understand. And so 10 people could ask the same question and get 10 different answers according to your beliefs and knowledge and
Agree.
education and all the stuff that goes into it.
So someone just wrote a question. If we dream of places we haven't seen with people we know, like a different life, is that just a dream? Or are we visiting this life? Is it a remembrance of one?
Oh, could be several. One, keep in mind we have 12 I should say there are 12 parallel lives going on at the same time. And uh, so that's you're all born at exactly the same minute, but after that, you all have different lives. So, as an example, just this morning, I was having a dream where it sounded like I was still in the tour business. And because on timelines 3 and 4, I never got out of the tour business. I kept in it, where on timelines uh, you know, 5, 6, 7, and 8, um, I'm in the international film and TV program distribution business. So it sounded like a dream where the guy that was my first employee in the film business, he was working for me in the tour business, and so it was kind of like I was looking in on a different parallel life.
Wow. So I, gosh, I have so many questions around that too, and I'll try not to get too far off. Yet the 12 parallel lives that are happening, um, do we exhume all 12 before we start over again? Does like if you die, say you leave the planet in your first and second lifetime before the fifth, sixth, and seventh have finished, does your soul wait? Does that make sense?
Well, I died on timelines 1 and 2, and so those two soul fragments have rejoined my soul.
I got you.
And keep in mind, there's no time over there.
Well, that
So,
right.
so it's not like they're going, oh, what am I going to do until the rest of these guys show up? Um, it's just a blink of an eyelid,
I
you could
gotcha.
say, or something.
Okay.
Or they can enjoy a nice uh, respite in a beautiful house on a seacoast, imaginations or whatever. Because
So,
they have the hardest lives. And every single life, their timelines 1 and 2, and every single life, we're timeline 6. Okay.
okay.
So we never, because otherwise it'd be very confusing to try and atone or balance something that we did in on timeline 1 on timeline 6, because that wasn't us. So we only balance things that we've done on timeline 6.
Oh, wow. So soul clusters, and then we have soul groups. Like the guy that worked for you in the film in this other time is in your tour business, that timeline, or have an idea that he's working for you there. Is he in your soul group? Like a soul that you keep coming around with?
No, I don't think so. He in this timeline, he eventually uh, went to work. Now, I don't want to say too much about him. He
Yeah.
might not appreciate it, but I mean, he eventually uh, devoted his life to um, supporting Bible translations. Okay, and so he just retired in the last year or so from that, and so and they got to move all over the place. I mean,
Wow.
Europe and Africa, and so on. So it was,
So
but it's
some,
setting him up. I know for a fact that in his next life, he's he's going to be, uh, gosh, what's the name of the society that translates Bibles? Oh well, he's going to be that guy, which is really interesting.
oh wow.
In the next life after that, he's going to be another big religious leader. So I already know what's coming for him.
Oh wow. So your wife would be a member of your soul group. Do y'all keep coming back around together or have your future lives planned out together?
Yeah, in her next life, she's going back to ancient Egypt. She was a priestess and helped us settle when when my group moved there in Atlantean times, and and then in her next life, when she goes back, she's going to be an early version of a pharaoh, somewhere around 12,000 600 years ago or so. And I'm going to be her assistant, but I've already had that life. It's a past life for me.
Oh wow.
So it's like they didn't feel I needed to go directly along with her, that I could handle whatever it was I'll as an advisor in that life at that time period, which was an earlier life for me. And then in our next life together, she and I will be these female space pilots in
Oh,
the 3400 era, um, whizzing, whizzing around the universe. I recently asked, I said, well, will I go to my home planet, to check that out? No, they've given you, I'm already living that life. You have to understand, all our lives are going on same time. And so they gave you a list of planets they wanted you to go visit. And that's what you're doing in that life.
mm. So somebody just typed in a question, do we have to come back? Well, if we don't want to come back to this life or repeat a life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Your souls volunteered for the Earth experiment. Okay, whether you like it or not, being human and and not being able to see where you came from and how many thousands of lives you had on your home planets, um, you're you're here because your soul volunteered. Your soul had the highest um, vibrational level of anyone on that planet that you came from, and and there could be 100 people from that planet that had the highest vibrations. However many it was, um, uh, you were able to volunteer and be accepted due to your high vibrational level. When I first was asking questions about this, I was told you had to have one spiritual life. That was not accurate, but that's what I could receive at that time. And so later on, it was finally described to me its vibrational levels.
Oh, wow.
And and we're fast tracked by taking part in these lives. We are fast tracking our vibrational level. Uh, and one day in the future, we're going to take over running this planet from the creator, and the creator gets to go to the 32nd or 34th level. And we will meld together and become a creator ourselves. And that's never been done before in any of the trillions of other um, creations. So they don't know what's going to happen. I said, what's going to be our soul? What's going to be our interest as a creator? And they said, we don't know because this has never happened before.
Oh, wow. That's hard to even wrap my head around.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, gosh, we should really just feel so honored to even be here having this experience.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just don't realize it.
Right. Right. Wow.
Oh, please don't give me any more lives. My goodness. But if you're saying that benevolent prayer every morning, it's going to make your lives easier.
Yeah, I totally agree. So will that and so what we do say if we're in the sixth out of the 12, say we're in the sixth one here and we're saying the benevolent prayers, does that affect our other fragments as well? Or more just in the sixth?
Um, I I have in my morning prayer, I say, and this I don't think is on the page, but I I send white light and love to every single continent, every single island, all the rivers, lakes, and streams, all the oceans and seas of the world, and I release this white light to go where it's needed the most to light up the darkest corners of the planet. But I also send white light and love to all the other timeliners the very same way. So all 12 are lit up and there's no more darkness, only light, and no more secrets in any of the 12 timeliners. So I say that every morning.
Love that. I love that. And that prayer or that morning one, it is in this book, by the way. So if
Oh, it is?
uh-huh.
The first one?
Yeah, that sends the white lights to all the rivers and streams, lakes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one is in there.
It's hard to remember.
Yeah. So I was
That
just
came out in
letting our
2006.
viewers know that
Okay.
if they want that prayer, it's in that book. So
Yeah, it's just I added the other timeliners
I think that's great.
on the
Yeah.
on the second part of it.
That's a great idea.
Help everybody else out.
So Tom, is there anything else you'd like to share with us today? Anything I didn't ask you want to um, bring up?
Um, I would encourage everyone to keep track uh, of of what's happening on the West Coast. And if there is any way that you can assist someone, suddenly they decide, hey, got to get out of here. Offer them a place to stay, even if it's only for a couple of weeks or a month until they can find someplace else. Um, do what you can. If it comes down to the point of donating food for refugees and things like that. It's going to be a real mess next year, according to what I'm being told. I wish I was wrong, but Gaia keeps bearing down on me, and so if it does happen, you'll know from the precursor quakes in the first 2 or 3 months that it looks like it's going to happen, and see if you can get your friends and family to get out of there and leave. Otherwise, um, Gaia says this has never ever been seen in modern times. That's how bad it's going to be.
Well, we can certainly start saying our prayers for them and be open to that. So, yeah, hopefully people are heeding that warning, but we could even say a benevolent prayer that they are heeding it and taking it seriously.
Yeah, because I'm told there's a lot of them that are going to try and ignore it because their guardian angels say that they need the experience, and it's too bad. But that's, if you try and convince a friend or family and they refuse, you just have to release.
And understand that surviving or perishing in a natural disaster was part of their soul contract.
Yep,
Yeah. Okay.
get it out of the way.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time.
Okay.
And again, everyone, www.thegentlewaybook.com, and go to his website, sign up for the newsletter. It's packed full of information. Um, watch for Conversations with Gaia, Volume 1 and Volume 2 to come out in the next few months, let's just say. And continue to say your benevolent prayers and most benevolent requests.
Right. Namaste, everybody.
Namaste. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right.